It's a very good morning to the Gelding and Gelding. Welcome back.
Good morning, Professor. Good morning, listeners. Yes, back to the lovely colder days of Melbourne. The voice has kind of come back with a bit of a cold once we hit the cold of Melbourne from the balmy 29 degrees of Bali, Professor. Left Bali on a Sunday last week at about 4 o'clock with 29 degrees and hit Melbourne at the bit after midnight at the chilly 6 degrees. So,
that would have woken you up if you were feeling a bit sleepy.
Yes, lucky had the biggest wind cheater I own and the warmest one and the long pants and things like that. But, Professor, there was plenty of people on the plane still in their shorts and T-shirts and when they hit Melbourne. Ooh.
Well, Gelding, a bit of a wake up for you, and first day of winter today. So
yes,
it's not going to get any warmer over the next few months.
No, but I did get a warm feeling when I was away, Professor, when you were solo last week. What a magnificent effort by you. Just for the listeners and hopefully those who followed us. 50% winners, 100% place getters. A bit stiff on the Professor's parlay. Place parlay up. A bit of a fill-in for the listeners in GM Racing.
Well, we hope so. There was no paper bags at the front door during the week, though, Gelding. A bit disappointed with that.
No, but I've got to give you a paper bag for a little bet on the Sunday.
Yes, well, we'll talk a little bit more about that later, Gelding. And races at Sandown while you're away on a Saturday.
Fantastic. What? I wonder what brilliant administrator came up with that plan.
Yes.
Use a track that everyone says is a fantastic racing surface during the winter. Fantastic. So all good. And look at the results, Professor.
Oh, great for racing, Gelding. Great for racing, great for us.
Good horses, good results. Couldn't be better, Professor.
All right, Gelding. Well, racing returns to Caulfield, so it's Melbourne Racing Club again, but at a different venue. Gelding, a question without notice, which we didn't discuss when you and I were talking before the show started. Only a 9-race card today. What's going on? I thought we were stuck on 10 races. Only 9 races. Is that all the horses they can find for Caulfield today?
Oh, Professor, you're good. You're good. You get me with the without notice questions. Always a bit of fun. Well, where's that soapbox? Okay, let's pull it out. Right, we're on the soapbox again. MRC, do they know what's going on? Fit in the 10 races. Now all of a sudden revert back to the 9-race program, Professor. And I'm having a look. They've still got the $80,000 race in, Professor. Everything else is 150, 130. 1 for 80. Now, if you're going to cut a race, wouldn't that be the one you cut?
Well, Gelding, look, stop talking logical. There's no logic in these discussions. Anyway, how about?
But there has been an article lately about with the 10 races and that during the week, some of the fields are very, very bare, Professor, and maybe the argument is there is too much racing, and look, it's all a chase for the punters' dollars, as they're saying. The TAB's dropped since COVID, but then it's not comparing apples to apples, Professor. They should compare what the takeover is now compared to what it was pre-COVID, because, of course, during COVID, people were going to bet more when they're sitting at home and can't go out.
Yeah.
Makes sense, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Anyway, that's the way it is. But
all right, Gelding. Well, the first race is at 11:50 a.m. The last race is at a very user-friendly time of 4:35 p.m. So anybody who stays for the last will certainly be home in time for tea.
Professor, the winter racing schedule. Early starts, early finishes.
Now, unusually, Gelding, I looked through all the races today. There is no feature race. How can you have a meeting without a feature race? Because there's nothing that really separates the races. I couldn't find.
Do you do this to me deliberately, Professor?
No, I don't, Gelding. I was amusing myself looking through it yesterday. And normally I'll look at the race and there'll be a group 1 or a group 2, group 3 listed race. None of that today at Caulfield. Then I'll look at the purse amount. Well, there's a couple of races that are worth the same amount. So there's nothing really that separates any of the races. So there's no feature race. We'll call it a no feature race day. I'll say, how could you have that? Well, you've managed to do it at Caulfield.
I'll go with race 6 as a major one, Professor.
Yes.
The open handicap worth 150. Race 7's a benchmark 100, and then the other one's a 3-year-old. But I like the way that you keep asking me questions to explain what the Melbourne Racing Club does, and you want me to come up with a logical answer.
Oh, well. All right, Gelding, we better get moving. Track is a good 4 at the moment. Possibility of rain during the day. So if there is, punters should take note of that because it could well affect the track, given we already had some rain during the week. The rail, Gelding, is out 9 metres, so they'll be racing down the road if they're too wide.
The railway down past Caulfield Railway Station. Bought your tickets.
They'll be in Derby Road, Gelding.
They will be. Make sure they get that turn at Normandy right. Professor, I think normal warning for Caulfield for the listeners. Have a look to see what the pattern's going to be. Rain during the week. Rail position out wide. Hopefully the horses can be running on, but Caulfield has been known to favour on-pace runners, Professor. So, look, just a quick word of warning. We don't know how it's going to race. So, our presumptions or our tips are based on it's a fair track. So, and there's no bias on the track, and let's hope that is the way it races.
All right, Gelding, what are your 2 best bets for today's races?
My first 2, Professor, are in race 3, horse 2, Episodic, trained in South Australia by Will Clarkson, to be ridden by our premier rider at the moment in Damien Lane. Very happy with that. This horse, since its spell, has come back with 3 wins, Professor. Won extremely well at Morphettville last start. Got back in the field, but just sliced its way through the field and came home with a fantastic run. A 4-year-old Travis Stock mare, Professor. 12 wins for 12 starts for 3 wins, 4 seconds and 3 thirds, Professor. So 10 out of 12 placings, 3 out of 12 wins. They're figures that we like. So I think Episodic can get us away early in race 3, Professor. I'll then go to one of the main races, Professor. Race 7, horse number 7, St. Lawrence, trained by Kieran Maher, again to be ridden by Damien Lane. If you can see a bit of a trend in my tips, Professor, when in doubt, look, why Lane isn't riding in Queensland, and he's obviously thinks he might have a good day down here, so hopefully go good. St. Lawrence, it's an overseas horse, a Redwood, probably purchased in New Zealand. 12 starts for 6 wins, Professor. Last starter was third at Rose Hill to Waterford, which isn't a bad little nag. I think this horse will go well in a very open race, race 7. At the moment, Professor, a bit short round about the $3 mark. I think if you wait, you might get a little bit better during the day with horses like Mudamac Pounding, and the one that I consider the main danger in Jimmy the Bear. But yeah, happy to go with Damien Lane and Kieran Ma, leading trainer, leading jockey. That'll do me, Professor. So my two, race 3, number 2, Episodic, race 7, number 7, St. Lawrence. And Professor, you like?
Yeah, Gelding, just before I go into what I like, I just had a quick look at the TAB. You're right about St. Lawrence. It's drifted out to 390 at the moment. So your advice to punters about waiting a little bit longer is accurate, because I think if you're a little bit patient, you might get some better odds.
Might get something with a nice little 4 in front of it, Professor. A nice each way value.
Would be even better, Gelding. All right, and I'm starting in race 4, Gelding, the Langwarrin Hotel Handicap. One of the few hotels that I haven't had a drink at in Victoria.
You sure?
Well, yeah, maybe the memory's fading, but no, I can't remember being in Langwarrin and having a drink at the hotel there, Gelding. It's a benchmark 78 for fillies and mares over 1,100 metres. In this race, Gelding, I like horse number 14. Here Comes the Star, coming out of barrier 5. It's had 9 races for 2 wins and 2 placings, so a 22% win rate, 44% place rate. It ran 5th to Heart of Glass, beaten a length at Sandown last start, Gelding. And I was going to say that Heart of Glass would have been the threat to it today, but Heart of Glass was scratched overnight, so that made me feel really good. The other threat in the race, Gelding, is number 9 for the Blue Army, Jewelry, trained by Cummings and ridden by Stackhouse. Yeah. But here Comes the Star, Gelding, is a Zoo Star filly. And everybody wants a Zoo Star, Gelding.
Oh, yes, I can see one up there, Professor.
Gelding, it's carrying 7.5 kilos less weight than the last start, so that'll do me. And a rider who we've had a little bit to do with recently, Gelding, Linda Meach in the saddle, and John Maloney training.
Yes, John Maloney was one of my trainers, Professor. Probably one I had the first horse with. So very, very good, Johnny. Well, not the first horse, but one of the horses.
Well, might have been the first horse, Gelding, Johnny Maloney, and Linda Meach, the last jockey to ride a horse for you.
Yes, Professor. We do. Yes, after your tips, maybe we can continue that.
All right, Gelding, good each way value there at the moment, $4.60 and $1.70. My second tip's in race 8, the Thoroughbred Club of Australia handicap. That should be the feature race just because of the name, Gelding.
Yes, I like it, Professor.
It's a 3-year-old open race for over 1,200 metres. Number 11, lovely looking, Gelding, lovely looking.
Lovely looking.
I hope the horse is lovely looking. It's coming out of barrier 4. Had 10 starts for 3 wins and a placing, Gelding, so a 30% win rate, a 40% place rate. It's in a weaker class today. The threat to it, Gelding, is number 2, Pivot City. They last raced each other at Morfettville a month ago, where Pivot City came 3rd and Lovely Looking came 4th. Lovely Looking 1.5 kilos better off today, so I'm hoping that drift in the weight might be in Lovely Looking's favour and it'll come home leading the way. For the trifecta, Gelding, a little bit of an outsider, the Blue Army, I'd throw in number 3, Heuristic. So my trifecta in the race, number 11, Lovely Looking, number 2, Pivot City, and number 3, Heuristic. I think if punters get on that, they might be very happy at the end of the day.
I like it, Professor. The form you're in, this punters could do worse than to follow that little trifecta. You box them up, Professor, will you?
Oh, yes.
$6.
It'll certainly be a boxed up $6 trifecta, Gelding.
Very nice.
Now, Craig knew it. You know how I love facts and figures, Gelding. Well, this one doesn't go in our favour, but Craig knew it. 11% career win rate. His last 50, his win rate over the last 50, 0. Ooh. It's the first time that I've picked a rider that hasn't won a race in his last 50 starts, his or her.
Oh, ouch.
But as we know from probability, though, Gelding, he's just as close to his next win.
Oh, Craig knew it's not far away from a winner, Professor. He knows how to ride. Don't worry about that.
And
and rode very well over the South Australia Carnival, and a South Australia trainer, Professor.
yes, Gelding, a very good each way odds here, Gelding. Currently for Lovely Looking, you can get $6 and 2.30.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful, nice each way odds.
Yeah. All right, so my two for today's races at Caulfield, Gelding, race 4, horse 14, Here Comes the Star, and race 8, number 11, Lovely Looking. And now let's turn to the Professor's Parlay. Gelding, one of the few errors I made last week was going to Doomben for the Doomben Cup, Kovalica. Gelding, I could have picked any one of the 4 horses from Sandown and we would have got a result.
Yes, but I didn't mind your tip last week, Professor.
Well, it was the favourite, Gelding, only beaten 2.5 lengths, but beaten by a horse that paid $23. So I don't think many people thought Boys de Argent was going to win.
Yes. We'll leave that one alone then, Professor, and we'll just look, backing a Chris Waller trained McDonald ridden horse, not a bad thing.
No, I did look at it and I thought, well, and we do try and go for what we believe is the best bet of the day, the one that will ensure that we get something. And that just stuck out for me last week, Gelding.
No, I liked it, and I like this week's too, Professor.
All right, Gelding. We did have Port Adelaide to beat North and Essendon to beat Richmond last week, so we did get 2 out of 3. Ain't bad, yes. But it does. 2 out of 3 ain't bad, as Meatloaf said. But unfortunately for the TAB, that doesn't pay. No,
at least we got some tickets to do some wallpapering.
We have, Gelding, we have. All right, well, this week, let's go to Eagle Farm for our bet of the day. Race 7, horse 1, I Wish I Win. Now, Gelding, can you tell the viewers why we've selected I Wish I Win as our bet of the day?
Professor, as we go for the parlay, we try not to look at odds. We try to find what we think is the best horse racing in Australia. The race today at Eagle Farm is the Kingford Smith Cup, $1 million race, Group 1 racing. So we're going for the best races. Professor, this field is as good a field as you could get in a sprint race. This would be quite worthy of an Everest. We're going with I Wish I Win, number 1. Peter Moody, Luke Nolan. Luke Nolan replacing James McDonald aboard after it was narrowly beaten last start by Bella Nipotina, Professor. We're going I Wish I Win because it has been racing in only predominantly Group 1 races, Professor, finishing 3rd and 2nd. So it's got to be right up there, Professor, and we think it will go very well. Of course, there's a lot of dangers with such a quality field. We think about it, Antino, Bella Nipotina that won last start. One of my favourites and your favourites, Professor in Secret and Espiona, but that's why we're probably getting round about the $3.80 to $4, Professor, for I Wish I Win. So we'll should definitely run a place. Doesn't need to improve much to win. Showing faith in your trainer, Professor Peter Moody. So that's the start of the Professor's Parlay. I Wish I Win.
Well, we're showing faith in our trainer, Peter Moody, and he's showing faith in Luke Nolan.
Yes, Luke Nolan back aboard, I Wish I Win, replacing James McDonald, who I believe is suspended, Professor. So will be interesting to see how Luke goes on I Wish I Win after some recent airing of articles about him losing the ride to McDonald. An owner's choice. Of course, it's owned by the Chittick family that own one of the big studs in New Zealand, Professor. So he wanted a New Zealand rider on board who we regard as the best in Australia in James McDonald at the moment.
Exactly, Gelding. All right, so it's Eagle Farm, race 7, horse 1, I Wish I Win, as the first leg of the Professor's Parlay, and we'll parlay that horse, Gelding, into Geelong to beat Richmond. Geelong in what we'd say for them is ordinary form at the moment, 7th on the ladder. 7 wins from 11 starts. What I do like is their average points for, Gelding, 93.5. So every time they're running on the field, they're kicking almost 100. They've lost their last 4, but they're at GMBHA Stadium. So that's a bastion for them, Gelding. And I think they might be a little bit too strong for the Tigers, who are 17th. They've only won one.
Picking on Richmond?
Yeah, picking on Richmond, Gelding. 17th. They've only won 1 from 11. Average points for, Gelding, 63. That makes them 18th in the league. Average points against, 103. 17th in the league. They haven't won since round 3, Gelding. The bookies don't like them. The line's 47.5, nearly 8 goals. So I think at $1.06, I would have thought Geelong might have been a little bit tighter than $1.06, Gelding. It might have been $1.01, but no, we're going to get $1.06 for that. So Geelong to beat Richmond at home. And we'll parlay that into the NFL, Gelding. The Sydney Roosters to beat the North Queensland Cowboys. The Sydney Roosters in the 8th, they're 7th. They've had 7 wins from 12 starts. What I like is, Gelding, that they've got a plus 135 points differential. So when they score, they really score heavily. North Queensland Cowboys 12th. They've won 6, only 1 less than the Sydney Roosters, but their points differential, Gelding, is only plus 2. So in the games they've lost, they've really been beaten badly. The other thing is, it's Origin time, Gelding, and Origin is next Wednesday. The North Queensland Cowboys are providing quite a number of their players to play in Origin. So they'll have a depleted lineup. The bookies have taken that into account. The line, Gelding, is 18.5, which is over 3 converted tries. So that's a lot, especially when you've got 7th playing 12th and only 1 win the difference. But the Sydney Roosters at home, I'm going for them to win. They're $1.12. The parlay, the win parlay showing 9-2, Gelding. The place parlay currently showing 2-1.
Nice odds there, Professor. Let's hope the race league can get up for you.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
I do like the others, even though it's against my Richmond. And I did notice you tipped against them last week too. But when you're getting over 100 points scored against you, Professor, you don't win many games of footy.
No, you don't. When you're only scoring just over 10 goals a game, Gelding, you're also not scoring many. Maybe it's time for Richmond to bring back Tom Hafey's, kick it long to hard.
Yes. Well, you could kick it long to your full forward if he was playing, but
he's not playing, Gelding. He's injured.
Yeah, he's not there much these days. So
no, he's not. Yeah. All right. Well, Gelding, we're certainly in good form, and we hope that that remains the case today. It could be a very big day for GM Racing. So until next Saturday, and that's racing, it's good luck.
And good punting.